It was 1966, and America was deep in the middle of the muscle car wars. Pontiac, Chevrolet, and Ford were all chasing the same thing. More cubic inches, more horsepower, more street credibility. The country was obsessed with drag strips, burnouts, and big V8 engines sending power to the rear wheels. Then Oldsmobile did something that made no sense. They built a massive luxury coupe with a big block V8 and sent all that power to the front wheels. If you enjoy forgotten automotive engineering stories like this, consider subscribing. Instead of building just another brute force coupe, Oldsmobile introduced the Toronado, a huge personal luxury car with front-wheel drive and a 425 cubic inch V8 under the hood. In an era defined by conventional American engineering, this was not just unusual, it was almost absurd. A big block front-wheel drive coupe producing 385 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque sounded less like a production car and more like an engineering dare. And yet, it was real. The 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado was not just different. It was one of the boldest drivetrain experiments Detroit had ever put on the road. Beneath its sleek body was a layout unlike anything else in American showrooms. A chain-driven transmission system built to prove something very specific. Front-wheel drive could work, even in a full-size luxury car with serious power. The Toronado did not follow a trend. It challenged decades of assumptions. But to understand why it mattered, you have to go back to a time when front-wheel drive in America was almost forgotten. By 1966, front-wheel drive had basically disappeared from the American industry. The last serious attempt was the Cord 810 and 812 back in 1937. After that, nothing. For nearly 30 years, American cars followed the same formula. The engine sat in the front, power went to the rear wheels, and everything worked as expected. It was simple, proven, and profitable. And for Detroit, that was enough. The Cord had shown what was possible, but it had also shown the risks, complexity, cost, reliability issues. So front-wheel drive was not seen as the future. It was seen as a dead end. But outside the United States, the idea never really disappeared. European manufacturers kept experimenting. Cars like the Citroën Traction Avant and later the Mini proved that front-wheel drive had real advantages. They offered better packaging, more interior space, and improved efficiency. But in America, where size and power still ruled, the idea stayed buried, until Oldsmobile brought it back. The Toronado did not start in 1966. It started much earlier, inside General Motors. In the 1950s, engineers began working on something called the unitized power package. The idea was to combine the engine and the transmission into a compact unit and drive the front wheels. On paper, it worked. In reality, it was far more complicated. General Motors even showed early versions at Motorama, but those were not production systems. They were concepts. The real shift happened when Oldsmobile took the idea seriously. By the late 1950s, engineers began pushing it toward production, not as a gimmick, but as a real car. One of the key figures behind it was John Belts. He believed front-wheel drive could represent the future. That belief changed everything. This was not the safe option. It was not easy, and it was definitely not conventional. But the project moved forward. Then reality hit. A big V8, a full automatic transmission, and front-wheel drive did not fit together, at least not in a normal way. A traditional transmission setup was simply too long. It would not fit under a low hood, and forcing it to fit would ruin the entire design. So Oldsmobile did something radical. They redesigned the layout completely. Instead of placing the transmission behind the engine, they placed it next to it, side by side. That made the drivetrain compact enough, but it created a new problem. Now the power did not line up, so they had to invent a new way to transfer it. The answer was a heavy-duty chain drive developed with Borg-Warner. This was not a small detail. It was the heart of the system. The chain connected the engine to the transmission, handling massive torque while staying smooth enough for a luxury car. From there, Power moved through gears into the differential and out to the front wheels. One detail made all the difference: equal length half shafts. Without them, the car would have suffered from severe torque. Steer. With them, it became controllable, usable, and stable. A car this unconventional needed the right design, and Oldsmobile delivered. The Toronado looked futuristic without looking exaggerated. It had hidden headlights, clean lines, and a wide stance. It even echoed the old Cord. Inside, the benefits were clear. Without a drive shaft tunnel, the cabin felt more open and spacious. The dashboard added to the futuristic feeling, with aircraft-inspired details. Everything about the car reinforced the idea that this was not normal. But the real question was simple. Did it actually work? 385 horsepower, 475 pound-feet of torque, front-wheel drive. On paper, it sounded difficult. In reality, it was complicated. Acceleration was solid, but traction was a challenge. There was simply too much torque and too much weight over the front wheels. Braking was another issue. Early models used drum brakes, and under heavy use, they struggled. But there was a surprise. Handling. The Toronado was more composed than many expected, especially in poor conditions. Front-wheel drive gave it real advantages. It was not perfect, but it worked, and people noticed. Motor Trend named it Car of the Year. Critics praised its engineering and its boldness. Even in Europe, it gained attention. Sales were strong at first, but when Cadillac introduced the Eldorado, things changed. The more prestigious badge drew buyers away. Still, the Toronado had already proven its point. It showed that front-wheel drive could work in a large, powerful American car. It was not just for economy cars. It could be powerful, luxurious, and advanced. And that idea would shape the future. The Toronado did not replace the muscle car formula, and it did not take over the market. But it proved something important. That innovation in the American auto industry was not just about bigger engines. Sometimes it meant questioning everything. And the real question is this: was the Toronado ahead of its time, or was it a direction the industry simply was not ready for?